Gypsy Susie Black was a clairvoyant after realising it years ago from when she was a little girl. She used to know if she got an A in school before she even did the exam. She knew if it was going to rain, or if it was going to be sunny, or if it was going to snow. She had crowds and crowds flock to her to get their future told. All Susie had to do was hold their hand and she would see their future. She was the real deal. One client was delighted with Susie. She had great news to tell her. She said, "Madame, I have looked into my crystal ball and I've great news to tell you. You have great things to look forward to in your future. You were working hard for years to get your business off the ground. Well, I can confirm to you now, your business will be off the ground in only a matter of weeks. And not only that, but it will be very, very successful and bring you in lots and lots of money. And you will be very, very happy doing what you're doing. I am telling you this now in confidence that this is true, and I would like you to come back to me in a few weeks' time or a few months and let me know how your business is doing." The woman smiled, and she was so happy with her reading. But then there was another woman, and Susie would tell her the truth, even though it would tear her apart. She said, "I am very sorry, but your boyfriend is going to lose his life in a month's time. He is working in a very dangerous job. I will not say what job it is, and I will not tell you how he's going to die, but you should know yourself. You are getting danger money from your husband from the job he's doing. I am getting a reading and I am getting an image of him being a special agent or a detective working a very dangerous case. There's no way you will be able to stop your husband from doing what he's going to do to be killed. I hate bringing you this news, but I'm afraid it is the truth." The woman went home and told her husband, and her husband was working on a very, very dangerous case. One day she found it very strange. She held a client's hand, but didn't feel anything. She just saw fire. She couldn't tell what it meant. The next client was the same. She held her hand, and there was nothing she could feel. Just see fire. The client got angry, not being told anything, but Susie wasn't going to lie. She wasn't going to make up stuff, because she never lied. She knew that there was fire, there was heat, but what did it mean? Susie was worried. She lost her psychic powers, but then she realised she hadn't lost any of her powers. She was seeing the future. She heard people scream and went outside and could see fire in the sky. The reason she couldn't read anyone's future was because there was no future, and seconds later, Earth exploded into flames, bringing the end of the world. Susan was a regular 17-year-old high school student, but what made her different than her classmates was her father was a famous senator. Because of this, everyone knew they were a very rich family. One day, everything changed in Susan's family when her dad got a phone call for ransom of $1 million for the safe return of his daughter. He was told if he contacted the police or FBI, she would be killed. He took the deal seriously, but still told the police, and they organised a plan. They would try to trace the next phone call. They used triangulation to pinpoint what area the kidnapper was making the call from, but there was a pickup organised in an old bridge that hardly was ever used. Susan's dad knew if the police came, they would ruin the whole thing, so he had $1 million fake notes printed, hoping the kidnapper would hand over Susan and not notice. When Susan's dad Frank arrived at the bridge, the perp was wearing a scarf over his face and asked for the money, then handed over Susan. Frank was delighted to have his daughter back. The next day, Susan met her boyfriend, who had been the guy pretending to kidnap her. He said, "Hey babe, your dad must really love you to hand over $1 million just like that." Then he raised a gun to Susan's head. "But you must not love me to cheat on me. You must think I'm stupid to not know. You have been cheating on me the last few weeks. That's why I talked you into pretending you were kidnapped to get more money off your rich father." He then shot Susan. Later that day, he realised in a shop that the notes were counterfeit, and he was arrested. Frank had the notes numbered and an alarm on them to there be a notification when they were being spent. Not only was Susan's boyfriend caught for kidnapping and ransom, but he was also arrested for murder.
My name is Jason. It was a cold, damp morning, and I was walking to school. I was running late, and I didn't want to get any trouble of my teacher, so I picked up pace as I walked down the street towards my school. I got a start when suddenly an elderly woman walked up to me and gave me a strange look. I looked at her, wondering what she wanted. She spoke. "Hey there, young man. Don't look so afraid. I was wondering, did you see my handbag anywhere? I must have dropped it along this pathway." I looked along the footpath, in front and back, and said to her, "I'm sorry, I haven't come across any bag, but I hope you find it." She gave me another strange look, then said, "Okay, thanks for your help." I told the lady, "No problem." Suddenly, an elderly man appeared in front of me. He gave me another strange look. "Hello, I was just going to ask you, did you by any chance come across a stray dog? My eager beaver escaped the leash." I found it strange, as I couldn't see the man carrying any leash. I said, "No, I'm sorry sir, I haven't come across any dog." The man said, "Are you sure?" I replied, feeling anxious that the man was so intense looking. "Yes, sorry sir, I'm sure." I was about to go when the man said, "Why are you in such a hurry?" I told him I was in a rush to school. The man looked towards my school, then moved his head close to me and said in a weird voice, "Be careful. We tried to meet you sooner, but we couldn't cross over." I wondered what he meant by that. He walked past me, and I was too stunned to say anything. As I approached my school, I could smell smoke and fire, and all the kids and teachers were running out screaming. It was an accident in the kitchen, apparently, and the whole place was ruined. Lots of kids and teachers suffered very bad injuries and third-degree burns. Luckily, no one was killed. I was watching TV on the couch, and my dad was on his laptop. He smiled at me and said, "Hey, look at this. I finally have a photo of your great-grandparents from all my hard work tracing our family tree. And would you believe your great-grandma was a psychic?" When Dad showed me the screen, I froze in fear. when I saw that my great-grandparents were the man and woman who delayed me going to school. It all hit me now. My grandma was psychic and knew the school would be ruined by a fire. They were delaying me to save my life. It all made sense now. When Grandad said we tried to meet you sooner, but we couldn't cross over. They saved me, but tried to save everyone from getting injured. But they could not move their spirit over from the other side on time.
Mary was very worried about her 6-year-old daughter Linda. She just sits around for hours and hours drawing, and that might not be so bad, but the drawing she did were always of what looked like monsters or demons. They reminded her of what you'd see kids draw in horror movies. She didn't really pay much attention to it until one day out in the garden she saw her daughter Linda digging a hole. Initially Mary thought Linda was playing a game of gardening or something, but she got a start when she saw Linda's doll lying in the hole. She asked her daughter why she was burying her doll, and Linda replied, "Because the Boogie Man told her." Mary felt a shiver run through her when she heard her daughter say such a weird thing, but she dismissed it, putting it down to maybe a few kids in school were talking about the Boogie Man. The next day, Mary saw a teddy bear in a hole in the garden that Linda dug. Mary got angry this time and said, "Linda, don't be so bad bringing that poor teddy out here and putting it in a hole in the garden." Linda got angry and said, "But the Boogie Man told me." Mary grabbed the teddy bear from her and shouted to her go into her room. The next day Mary was out in the garden and she was pleased to see Linda was just playing and looked happy. Mary continued gardening when suddenly she felt something hit her in the back of her head. When she came around she could see Linda looking down at her. Mary was horrified and said, "Sweetie, what are you doing?" Linda lifted up a shovel and said, "I'm going to bury you in the hole, silly." Mary shouted, "No, no, no," as the shovel hit her head. Linda smiled and said, "But the Boogie Man says yes." Tony was a writer of crime fiction and horror. He was writing his first draft and he wanted peace and quiet, so he rented out a quiet cabin in the woods for 6 months. His story was based in a cabin in the woods, so he thought it only right that he wrote at least his first draft in the cabin. Things began to get very weird. He was just after finishing writing his first chapter, which was about a sheriff calling to ask about any teenagers who might have passed through, as they were terrorizing the neighbors. There was nothing that weird about him writing it at first. It was what happened afterwards really took Tony by surprise. Within 5 minutes of the chapter being written, there was a knock on the door, and the sheriff was standing outside asking did Tony see any teenagers pass through as they were causing trouble down in the town. Tony was shocked and told him no, he didn't. He felt like telling him about what he had just wrote, but he just told him he was writing a novel and left it at that. The sheriff smiled at him and said, "That sounds really great, sir. Good luck with your novel. And remember, it's the start and the ending that's most important." He gave a smile and walked away. Tony felt a weird energy come off the sheriff as he walked away. The next couple of months didn't have any other weird coincidences, and Tony was starting his last chapter where a guy living in a cabin gets killed by a crazy killer. Tony had just finished the last line, which was, the killer had put a knife to the man's throat and slit it open. A few minutes later, Tony heard footsteps behind him. He got a start when he saw the sheriff standing right in front of him holding a knife, and he just stared at Tony, saying, "Remember I told you, it's the start and ending that's most important." Tony thought of the last line of his book and realised this sheriff knew what his first chapter was about, and he must have known what his last one was about, and he was about to kill him. Now his words about the beginning and ending made sense. As the man swung the knife for Tony, he ducked and grabbed the knife and stabbed the man who he had paid to give him 2 visits at the cabin. First visit to coincide exactly at the time Tony finished his first chapter, and the second visit coinciding with him finishing his last chapter. Tony smiled looking at the man in a pool of blood, wondering what the man had actually thought of him paying him $500 to call and do his first few lines, and then the grand finale a couple of months later with a knife. Tony wondered had the man any clue or any suspicion he would ever grab the knife off him and kill him with it. Tony was pleased with his work, always believing truth is always stranger than fiction.